The ability to play any game mode with only one build and playstyle in Guild Wars 2 is a difficult task, because you want to be viable and effective wherever you go, and while there isn't much of a gear grind, it can be tiresome always swapping your gear around whenever you want to do something new. In my one build for all game mode series, I solved that issue by finding what can be effective everywhere with the least amount of changes. For the warrior, I've already covered the Spellbreaker one size fits all build. Now I'll do the Berserker warrior. Once again, the idea is to have one set of gear for both World vs. World and PvE, and only swap the traits and skills because those are easy enough. And then for PvP, all the gear is in the PvP tab and the balancing is slightly different, but if you enjoy that playstyle in other game modes, I make it work out here as well. Let's start out by explaining the Berserker mechanics that will apply to all game modes. All warriors gain adrenaline when hitting enemies, and based on some choices, it can be gained elsewhere, such as weapon swapping or being hit. And they can use adrenaline to perform burst skills, which depend on the weapon that they're currently wielding. Berserkers cannot use the normal burst skills, instead they can enter Berserk mode. Once in Berserk mode, they can use primal bursts, which are like improved versions of the normal burst skills, and they will only cost 10 adrenaline to get to their maximum value, whereas normal burst skills require 30 adrenaline to get their maximum value. However, Berserk mode will only last a certain amount of time, and once you leave Berserk mode, you cannot use any of the burst skills until Berserk mode cooldown recharges and you re-enter it. Entering Berserk mode will also grant you condition damage and power, but lower your toughness by 300. You want to time your Berserk mode so that you can use as many primal burst skills as you can, but more importantly, that they actually connect. Entering Berserk mode will also perform an area attack nearby, which is great for triggering some traits and clearing blindness, which warriors struggle to deal with. Because each primal burst has its own cooldown and most warrior builds use discipline traits, the flow of Berserk mode ideally is as soon as you enter Berserk, you use your current weapon's primal burst, swap weapons and use the other burst, then while waiting for the cooldown, you gain adrenaline for the same weapon's burst skill, then use it and swap to the other weapon and use that burst. The specifics will mainly depend on which weapons you use, so let's get into the build. Many people want PvE builds without toughness in them because it complicates a very niche section of the game called raids. And while it is very easy to just ignore that and tell them to run a raid build if they care about that, I have some options here for players to be able to get low amounts of toughness if they want, but really the build wants to have plenty of toughness to make up for the fact that in Berserk mode, you'll lose 300 toughness. I take Trailblazer gear with anti-toxin runes. If you only care about raids, take Viper's gear. The anti-toxin runes will increase all condition cleanses by 1, which benefits smaller but more frequent cleanses. We'll identify where the cleanses are later. Take a Viper's Mace and Shield with Geomancy and Doom, and then take a Viper's Sword and Torch with Hydromancy and Energy Sigils. I do not have a Viper's Torch, but you should. The swap sigils are great on warrior not only because the discipline trait Fast Hands allows them to trigger every 10 seconds, which is their minimum cooldown, but also because Hydromancy and Geomancy perform an attack which will generate adrenaline if it hits something, and more adrenaline the more targets you hit. This helps to flow between primal bursts because it gives you full adrenaline much faster. Then take Trailblazer Trinkets. So the full build is everything Trailblazer, except for the weapons, because it's important to have a little bit of precision to be able to proc the King of Fire's trait. If you want, you can get Viper's gear and then 2 sets of trinkets, 1 Trailblazer and 1 Viper. That way you can interchange them as needed and have a full Viper set and then a mostly Trailblazer set. But from now on, we'll assume only the weapons are Vipers. The PvE build takes Defense, Discipline with Berserker, going for the Shield trait, which allows you to reflect when blocking, and your Mace 2 and Shield 5 count as that. Then take the passive stance traits for low cooldown safety nets, Adrenal Health will give regeneration for landing burst skills, and the attack created by entering Berserk mode, which costs 30 adrenaline, gives full stacks of adrenal health, so make sure you're near enemies when you enter Berserk. Then take Discipline with Warrior's Sprint for the movement and immobilize removal on any movement skills, including the Sword Leap and Shield Bash. Brawler's Recovery cleanses a condition on weapon swap, which is a 5-second cooldown, but with antitoxin runes, that's 2 cleanse every swap. And by the way, if you remove Immobilize with Warrior Sprint, that also counts, so it would remove another condition. Burst Mastery will grant swiftness on burst skills and will refund 33% of the adrenaline required to cast them. This means every time you cast a Primal Burst, you'll have 3 adrenaline. Weapon swapping gives 5 adrenaline because of the versatile rage trait, and that'll put you at 8 adrenaline. And then swapping will also trigger Geomancy or Hydromancy, which will give at least 1 adrenaline per target hit. So you're going to be at like 9 adrenaline, and you only need 10 to use a Primal Burst. So at the most, you'll really need to just hit the target once to use your next Primal Burst after swapping. This means you can usually pump out your bursts back to back. In Berserker, take Smash Brawler for longer Berserk mode durations, Heat the Soul for even more condition damage, and then King of Fires, which is the main combo component of the build. Essentially, King of Fires gives synergy to fire auras. Whenever you crit, you will grant yourself a fire aura on a 15-second cooldown. That's why we have some Viper's pieces. Then whenever you use a Berserker skill, it will detonate that fire aura for 3 stacks of burning, which can make a condition build more bursty than a power build. What are Berserker skills, you might be asking? They are any skill that you could use if you were a Berserker. So any torch skills, any of your rage utilities like Blood Reckoning and Headbutt, any of your Primal Burst, and even Berserk mode will count as a Berserk skill. You can also gain fire auras by combo finisher leaping through the Torch 5 Flames of War skill, which creates a fire field due to that combo finisher. This means that the order of skills is very important. You want to give yourself fire aura, then detonate it using a Berserker skill, and then use another leap skill and then detonate it, all within the 5-second duration of the torch skill. Some skills will contribute to the combo as a leap, others will contribute by being a Berserker skill. Sundering Leap is both a leap and a Berserker skill, so it will detonate the fire aura it creates automatically. The Torch 4 isn't amazing damage, it's mainly used to detonate fire aura, but the Torch 5 will pulse burn, and at the end of the pulse, it will do a big burn at the end. The beginning of the skill will also remove 2 conditions, or 3 because of antitoxin. Savage Leap will create a fire aura in your Flames of War, and so will Shield Bash. Even though the Mace isn't amazing for damage, there will be plenty of skills to use to be able to dish out damage in the Mace. Namely the Primal Burst skill, Skull Grinder, which is going to give you Bleeding, Confusion, Blind, and Daze. And then you have Flaming Flurry, which is the Sword Burst skill, and it's going to shoot out projectiles in front of you, blocking any projectiles coming at you, and giving out lots of burn in a piercing line. The skill is very versatile and can be used while moving around, but it takes some time to cast, so it's not always the best option even though it does the most damage. If we were to make a priority, it would be to always use Primal Burst when possible, and then fill in the gaps with leaps and use the Primal Bursts or other Berserk skills to detonate the fire fields. Headbutt is also great at getting you to 30 adrenaline because when it lands it will give you 30 adrenaline, and it will also stun the target for 3 seconds and stun you for 1 second. Blood Reckoning will also give 10 adrenaline and recharge your Primal Burst, so what you want to do is use your burst, Blood Reckoning, and then use the burst again. It's really good to use when your weapon swap is still on cooldown and you need to fill in more animations until it's off cooldown. It will also heal you based on the amount of damage you deal. So try to use it in Berserker mode, but after your conditions are already out. And yes, it will heal you based on condition damage you deal. A basic combo would look like this. Use Flames of War, Savage Leap in and detonate the fire field, Sundering Leap, swap, Shield Bash, and then Headbutt. Then you would want to go into your Berserk mode. And this would essentially give you 3 Fire Aura detonations and then put you into your Berserk mode, which is really nice because when you're out of the Berserk mode, it feels like there's not a lot of damage you can deal, but because of the King of Fire's synergy from the amount of leaps that I have in this build, you can still do a lot of damage while your Berserk mode is still on cooldown. So let's go over some of the decisions I make when doing the Berserker rotation. So I'm going to start out using Flames of War, and I'm just going to detonate as many leap finishers as possible and then enter into Berserk mode. So leap, finisher, leap again, shield bash to get that, and then headbutt to detonate. I'm going to go into Berserk, use Skull Grinder twice with the Blood Reckoning, swap, and use the Flaming Flurry. Now I'm going to wait till my Flames of War comes off cooldown and my Flaming Flurry, so I'll use Flaming Flurry first, and then I'll use Flames of War and then do more leaps. I'll use the Skull Grinder and the leap finisher there to get the detonation, and then I'll Skull Grinder again and Blood Reckoning, and then I'm going to swap to Flaming Flurry. Now I'm going to run out of Berserk mode, but my Flames of War is off cooldown soon, so I'm going to wait for that and use my leaps here. Use Shattering Blow to detonate and Sundering Leap. Use the Shield Bash, and now we can detonate it and go into Berserk mode, and we're back into the rotation here. And we want to wait for the Flaming Flurry again because we're waiting for the Flames of War. You don't want to swap into the Mace without the Flames of War being up because then you don't really have too many options there. And we're going to wait for another Skull Grinder here. Use the 2 skill to gain some adrenaline. We're going to Blood Reckoning this and then swap into the Flaming Flurry. And now I want to wait for the Flames of War here. I can use my Torch 4. And once I get the Flames of War, I'm going to use some leaps here. And the ordering is not too important between Sundering Leap and the other one there. But I'll headbutt here to use that detonate. And I'm going to go back in Berserk, use the double Skull Grinder because the animation on Skull Grinder is really fast, so it's a lot more animation or a lot less animation investment to use the Skull Grinder than to use the Flaming Flurry because the Flaming Flurry is such a long cast time. But as you can see here, I'm just using the Skull Grinder twice usually because I don't want to be wasting that much time because I have other skills that I want to use. And then I'm going to probably leave Berserk mode here. Yeah, I didn't get that last Flaming Flurry off, but you can see how the kind of priority system works there. This is probably the hardest hero point challenge in all of Heart of Thorns, the Mushroom Queen. So I start out doing my initial burst while CCing to break the bar. I use Berserk mode and use the double Skull Grinder, which will break their bar and allow me to get out of range after they put all their AoEs down like that, using the Flaming Flurry because I can use it so versatilely at range. I am using my Endure Pain to tank all of those AoEs. If you stand in that, you're going to take a lot of damage, as you can see. So I'm trying to block, trying to position with Flaming Flurry. I use my Blood Reckoning to get some healing from range with the Flaming Flurry as well. And whenever I can, I will use a Skull Grinder in melee range. But I have to kite now because I'm out of Berserk mode. So I'm just line of sighting the Mushroom Queen and making sure that I can survive until I can get back into Berserk mode. Use my Endure Pain to survive and use Blood Reckoning to shrug off any damage I take. So I'm going to probably try to break the bar with my headbutt here. I go into Berserk mode, do the double Skull Grinder, and that breaks the bar, but the AoE is already down, so I have to Blood Reckoning to heal through it. And I'm going to try to get some Fire Auras here, and I'll use my Shield Bash potentially. No, I'm going to just get out of range here because I'm playing safe. I have double Endure Pain up, so I'm going to just tank all the AoEs here. And that is the real benefit of playing Warrior, is you have just pure immunity to physical damage. It doesn't matter how much mitigation you have because it's 100%. And here I'm going to get a probably headbutt the boss when they're out of their AoEs, and that's going to allow me to freely cast on them, get my Flaming Flurry off, do another Flaming Flurry probably when I Blood Reckoning, and that'll heal me quite a bit because I've already got burns on the boss. And I'm going to just go in here pretty recklessly because that's how a Berserker is supposed to play. Now, at this point, boss is pretty close to getting their break bar broken, but I don't want to go in there. I'm going to try to Flaming Flurry from afar, and I just left Berserk mode, so I want to kite again and just wait until there's a good moment for me to... So my Endure Pain just proc there, but I have my active Endure Pain soon, so I'm going to use my Endure Pain with the headbutt, break the boss, and just let loose on them, use Flaming Flurry. I've got the healing now, and I'm just resustaining, and the boss is at 3%, so we're going to be fine here, and we're going to get the kill. In World vs. World, use the exact same gear, but make some minor changes to the skills and traits. Despite the passive Endure Pain trait having a 300-second cooldown in competitive modes, it does have a pronounced effect when it triggers, and there's a lot of downtime in World vs. World to make up for that, meaning if it triggers once and then you die, you'll have it up by the time that it's needed next. However, the Stances Grandmaster is probably not as good as the Cleansing Ire trait, which will essentially give you adrenaline whenever you're hit, which is great for helping you maintain your adrenaline when being kited, since real players won't be as easy to hit as PvE mobs. It will also cleanse a condition for each bar of adrenaline used from burst skills. This means that going into Berserk mode gives 3 cleanses, but really 4 from Antitoxin, and then every Primal Burst after that will give 2 cleanses because of Antitoxin. All the traits are the same otherwise, but I take Mending for extra healing that's more reliable than the Blood Reckoning, and it'll also give you more cleanse. And I will be taking the Bull's Charge because unlike Sundering Leap, it's an evade and a 3-second knockdown, which is a lot better in PvP, even though it doesn't have as much synergy and it's a little bit of a longer cooldown. It still has the Leap finisher, which you can combo with your Torch 5. Then take Balance Stance because it gives stability and immunity to crit, so that's just going to be really good in most World v. World situations that are unreliable and uncontrollable in those large numbers that World vs. World can get to. If you feel like you're outnumbered more often than you are outnumbering and you really need the extra survivability, you can go for Savage Instinct, which will give you an Endure Pain for 2 seconds every time you enter Berserk mode, which can be pretty nice. And also, what is really good about this build is that the defense trait line gives you Reflect whenever you're blocking, and there's tons of Rangers in World v. World. They're just going to be shooting you with projectiles, and your Mace 2 will block projectiles, your Shield 5, and you also have your Flaming Flurry will block projectiles. So you have a lot of ways to deal with range damage as a full melee build. The idea of the build is to have damage outside of your Berserk mode, but in the Berserk mode you're going to have a lot of pressure anyways, so you want to use Flames of War and your Leap finishers, and you're detonating those while you're waiting for the enemy to kind of like bait out their cooldowns, and then once you think they've used their cooldowns, you want to go in Berserk mode and then go for the big damage there. So you essentially go for the, and if they don't dodge then they just die, right? So you start out by doing your Leap into these. You can land Bull's Charge into Headbutt. If they don't dodge any of this, then they take quite a bit of damage from all the detonations. And then from this point you want to go into your Flaming Flurry, and you want to just stay on top of them, Savage Leap onto them, use your weapon swap on top of them, the Geodoom swap into your Mace is really good. And then you want to use your Skull Grinder near them. You don't want to use it when you're like gap closing, because generally people will want to dodge that Skull Grinder because it's really a high presence skill there. So what I like to do is I like to get in their faces, wait for them to dodge, just attack them with other skills, and then once they dodge, go for the Skull Grinder. And then once you leave Berserk mode, you still have some damage with Flames of War. Generally, I don't like to use Flames of War while I'm in Berserk mode because that's where most of your damage comes from, the elite finishers and stuff. And yeah, you just have a lot of options. You can go for leaps from your 2, your 4 in shield, or your Bull's Charge, and then you can detonate with Headbutt, either going into Berserk mode or using your Torch 4. And also, of course, if you have like a really long stun on someone from your Bull's Charge or your Headbutt, you don't want to go into your Skull Grinder immediately because the daze will break their stun. So generally that's why I like to save my Berserk mode for a little bit after. Here's a clip showing a 1v2 against a Deadeye and a Dragon Hunter. Now I do have a lot of projectile reflex, but I'm still going to need to use the line of sight here to survive being this outnumbered. And being able to pull them into me by using the line of sight like this allows me to land my abilities much more easily. So I'm trying to bait them around the corner, and the DH comes in, I land my Skull Grinder with tons of burns from the detonations, and they can't really do anything because they have confusion on them, and if they try to cleanse it, then they eat the confusion damage, but if they don't cleanse it, then they've got the burns and the bleeds. But now I'm on the Deadeye, and I'm using tons of projectile blocks with the Flaming Flurry, and I'm just sticking on top of them. I do my Shield Bash into Headbutt, which detonates and gets my Flame of War to proc on them, and they just die to the residual burns. This is going to be a bit of an outnumbered situation. I am using Shake It Off here, which is also a good utility, but since I'm versus 2 condition classes, it just works out that it's really good in this situation. But I'm going to be kiting and using my burst skills to remove these conditions from me. I can also use my projectile blocks to avoid the short bow attacks, which will counter pressure them, and yeah, that gets them off my tail a little bit. I can use my burst skill on the bog scale here to get a little bit more adrenal health or cleanse if I needed. And they're going to be chasing me into the frog area. I use my Bull's Charge, but they have stability now, so I have to really back off. I use my Mace too, but yeah, it's going to get removed. I cleanse a lot of conditions from the Scourge here, and I'm going to use my shield block and wait for a moment to use my burst. I see that the ranger's low, and I go for the Skull Grinder and get them with the entire Flaming Flurry here. And they're going to be really low, but the Scourge is still on me. I have to use my cooldowns here to survive. And the Soul Beasts, I can't really see them, but they're really low. I change target to the Scourge and I Flaming Flurry them. They have a lot of barrier, but they're going to go down because they don't have much cleanse. And now it's just me and the Soul Beast left. And I have my shield block, which is counter pressuring them quite a bit. Even though I'm really low, I go aggressive, get the headbutt, and finish them off with the Flaming Flurry. This is a 1v1 against a core Hammer Guardian. I've fought them before, and they actually kicked my ass a few times, but I know that I'm trying to avoid their big burst there, so I pressed my Endure Pain preemptively to avoid all the damage from the hammer abilities. And then I just go into my burst here and land my Skull Grinder after my headbutt. And I'm just CCing them, waiting for my Adrenaline to swap on top of them, give them the Hydromancy swap. And then I'm going to use my Flaming Flurry here again, but I have my Flames of War as well, so there's also going to be a detonation on top of this. They go into their invulnerability, and I actually eat a lot of damage from their hammer here, and I have to shield block. I headbutt to stun break through the Ring of Warding, and I get a really good Bull's Charge there. But now they have their burst ready. I have Endure Pain ready. I use the Endure Pain into their focus burst there, and I land a really good leap finisher combo into my Flames of War, and that's going to get them really low from the Flaming Flurry. And I am playing a little bit safe, but I do realize that they're low as well. I land a really good leap into headbutt into Skull Grinder for the kill there. Here's a 1v1 with a Fresh Air Ellie. They're pretty much going to try to avoid me, and I need to survive their attacks while just getting their cooldowns out of the way so that I can eventually one-shot them, because they don't really have any condition cleanse, and what little stun breaks they do have, I can bait them out very easily as long as I can keep up with them. So I am trying very hard to use my leap to get the most value to stay on top of them, but they're trying really hard to get away from me. I do land my shield bash here, and that's going to allow me to Flaming Flurry, but they have their projectile block up, so the Flaming Flurry actually hits me. So I back off, and I'm waiting for my Berserk mode to reset here, because I know that they've used quite a bit of their cooldowns, and I'm going to be out of my cooldown soon. But I come back in with the Bull's Charge. They use their stun break, which they're going to be blocking now, and I use my headbutt. I land a really good stun there, and they're going to be stunned for 3 seconds. All I need to do is stand on top of them now, because they're pretty much out of everything, and I Flaming Flurry on top of them, slow them, cripple them, and land a really good Skull Grinder for the kill. In PvP, you don't have access to the Antitoxin Rune, so we're going to have to make up for that with the Cleansing Sigil on the Mace. Still have the Doom Sigil there. We have the Energy Sigil on the sword still, but also a Battle Sigil, because we're going for a Rabid Amulet, which still has the precision on it, but it's a little bit more condition oriented. And we use the Aristocracy Rune with the Strength trait line. So whenever you CC a target, you will give weakness to them because of the Strength trait line Body Blow, and whenever you give weakness to a target, you will gain Might. And with the Might Makes Right trait, that can end up giving you quite a bit of sustain. And of course, this allows you to handle blinds a lot better, because whenever you dodge, you will do an attack that's unblockable, and that'll remove blinds, so it's a lot easier to handle blinds with this build. And the Strength trait line also allows you to take Peak Performance, which reduces the cooldown on Mending and Bull's Charge, which, even though you don't really want to be doing power damage too much, it is nice that the cooldown on Bull's Charge and Mending is lowered, because that gives you more sustain and combo potential, of course. And also, you have Fire Auras on this build a lot, and whenever you get hit while you have a Fire Aura, that gives you Might. So there's a lot of ways for you to gain Might, of course, from the CCs, from Aristocracy Rune. The Battle Sigil is going to give you Might. And instead of having Balance Stance, of course, you have Shake It Off, because Shake It Off is going to give you your cleanse, and Balance Stance is a lot more nerfed in PvP than it is in World vs. World. This is a ranked PvP match as the Condition Berserker build, and the role is either to go to the side nodes and play as a duelist, like for 1v1s, or I can even play a DPS and go into team fights like I am right now, because I can go on the focus target, CC them, and the King of Fires will do plenty of AoE around me, so it's good for hitting multiple targets in team fights. And yeah, it's pretty much just going to lock down the main target for your team, which is very useful. So I see here I am getting focused by the Mesmer, so I'm trying to play a little bit safe. I see that they get the Dragon Hunter down here on the side, so I'm going to cleave it a little bit because their Necro is coming in. I Flames of War and Bull's Charge to get a leap finisher, and I detonate with my Berserk skills, but I'm getting feared, and I'm trying to get the CC from the side. I Skull Grinder them, which gets them off the res, and we're going to chase them down with our team and get some cripples out from the 4 skill on the Torch. And now we can go into home and try to help out our Ranger, who is now outnumbered because the enemy team had rotated out from that losing fight early. So I get the CC from the Bull's Charge, but my Ranger goes down. I interrupt their heal with the Mace 3, but I see that the Necro is trying to self-res, so I tried to stop this by bursting them a little bit. And now I go for the Stomp on the Warrior. I know that they can go for Vengeance, but they get rallied anyways by the Mesmer, who has the safe Stomp there. So I get the Bull's Charge on the Warrior here, and I headbutt them, which is going to allow me to finish them off with the final thrust, and our Reaper is also going to be able to get the kill on the Mesmer. So we have a pretty commanding lead at the start here, so I will try to watch the node. So I'm watching mid and I'm watching home. I see that their warrior is going for home and their mesmer is going for mid. Can't chase both at the same time, so I decide to watch home because I hope that our team will either get far or go to mid. So I'm chasing the 1v1 against the warrior, and especially because the warrior is a better matchup for me, because warrior versus warrior, it's a little bit more even than warrior versus mesmer, which is favored towards the mesmer. So I take the warrior matchup, and I do get them quite low at the start from the the King of Fires trait already, and they need to cleanse. They use some dodges here, and I time my Bull's charge into the end of their dodge, land a final thrust, and get a kill here in the 1v1. So we're going to hold the node. Our team is actually going to be dying at far, it looks like, and we've already lost mid because we decided to go for far. So I have to go into the bell now and contest that. So our team is kind of dying at far, and we're a little bit low at mid, and I'm going to have to try to peel for my necro here by CCing this lich form. And yeah, as you can see, the tons of CC that I'm doing here is just really great. And this core necro is pretty much gonna die, but we have to go help our the necro gets picked off from the side by the mesmer, and the other necro had disengaged with worm, so there's not much I can do to chase teleport classes as a warrior. So yeah, their mesmer has a lot of invulnerability, so maybe they're not the best target to focus in this team fight. So I swap to the necro, who just disengaged and re-engage into this fight. So I'm back on them, but our ranger is looking very low, and we don't have much pressure on any of these targets here. I do land a really good skull grinder, but they have a lot of cleanse on this build. More of a inspiration mirage build, very good against conditions. So yeah, we're gonna see if we can go for the res on the ranger, but no, it's not possible. And now their DH is coming in, and we're in a really bad spot because they own 2 nodes and we own none. And I just lost my berserk mode, so I'm waiting for cooldowns. So I go and decap the node while I'm waiting for my cooldowns and my health. And then as soon as I get the decap, I'm gonna go into the team fight to try to help them. But yeah, it's a little bit too late now. We're already dead in the team fight. Our firebrand goes down. I'm going to try to kill the dragon hunter here and see if I can do anything with that. But yeah, we've lost 2 players already. So I'm just going to have to leave this. And yeah, there's no way that I can get a kill there. So I should have just left earlier. So I go into far, and my team is actually capping mid. So we're not in a terrible spot. We did lose the bell, and I'm getting chased by their mesmer. Not the best matchup for me, especially when they have so much Condi cleanse. So really I should be leaving this, but I just wanted to stay until I got the decap there because I know that this build is going invulnerable a lot. So I got the decap, and at this point I have to get off the node because they use Chaos Storm, and I can't really trade with them when they have Aegis and invulnerabilities up. So I'm just waiting for my big cooldowns. And I go for I get interrupted in my skull grinder there, and there's just clones. I'm getting blinded. I get bursted there, and I actually get interrupted on my heal here. So I'm in a really bad spot, and I die before I'm able to get off my heal. So yeah, that was a pretty big mistake there, staying in the 1v1 when I know it's a unfavorable matchup, but I also know that the mesmer will decap itself anyway, so I can come back at any time and they can't really hold the node. So I should have played a lot more safely, because I could even disengage and reset and they would just lose the node immediately, even if they got the cap in the middle of the 1v1. So I played that pretty poorly, but now we are kind of in a bad spot. Now we did get the bell, but we don't own 2 of the nodes, and they already have 1 bell too, so it's even on bells, and they're going to be soon getting ahead of us in points. So I want to kind of change my strategy here, not going for the mid fight. Maybe I want to play more of a duelist. I take the 1v1 with their warrior again, which is good for me. We took this before, so this is a rotation that's pretty good compared to the mesmer 1v1. I get CC'd, and I endure pain and overlap it with my shield block because I don't want to get CC'd again. in my Endure Pain, because that's one thing that warriors do in this matchup is they'll CC the other warrior during their invulnerability so that they can chain CC, and you know, the CCs eventually last long enough that the invulnerability won't. I do land a really good Flaming Flurry here. They get their heal skill off, and I land a really good Skull Grinder on them. They shake it off, and I land a really good Flaming Flurry as well because I'm rotating through my cooldowns very effectively. I miss a lot of my CCs, but my team is here. I headbutt to stun break their shield bash, and that will also stun them, and that gets the kill. Now at this point, we have to kind of rotate out into the map because the enemy team is now ahead of us in points. My Firebrand is caught out by themselves, so now I'm going to be outnumbered at mid most likely, but I need to get out something. So we're going to push in with our Mesmer into the Score Necro, see if we can get some CCs. I'm doing the leap combos to detonate, but yeah, their Guardian is on me. I have to Endure Pain this so I can avoid getting bursted, and their Necromancer is also on top of me. So I headbutt them just to get them off me, and Skull Grinder as well, and I get bursted pretty hard here. So I'm trying to juke around terrain using my leaps to get some distance, and yeah, using Skull Grinder even will give me a little bit of distance away from them. And I'm just kiting, cleansing conditions, and now the DH is in my team's territory, so they're out of position, and I leave them to be chased by the Mesmer because I know the Mesmer can handle the DH with no cooldowns. But the DH is chasing me still, so I swap to them. I interrupt their heal skill, I believe, get a nice Bull's Charge, but I didn't really do much with it. I put out my Flames of War and go for headbutt, but it gets blinded. But I do land a really good Skull Grinder with the Fire Aura on there, which allowed me to just instantly kill the warrior there, or the DH there. And my team is also doing pretty good in these team fights now, and we're able to get some kills here. I'm just using my burst skills as often as possible, and now we're gonna be pretty good because we've got 3 kills. We can get the 50-point bell, and I'm gonna stay behind to cap while the others rotate around the map. Hopefully we can hold mid on the respawners. And it looks like my Firebrand is going far. Yeah, we're going to actually lose mid. I don't know why these 2 players are just sitting here AFK. But we're going to head to mid and try to finish the match. But that is pretty much how you play the Condi Berserker build. You want to use your mobility to kite and then just find a target and focus it. If you want to do your duels, then you're going to have to pay more attention to the matchup. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you like this content, like the video, subscribe for more. And if you want to support me, you can do so by checking out the links in the description. And also, guys, leave me a comment, please. Anyone in the chat? You got anyone there? Leave me a comment. Let me know if you're here. And I'll see you guys next time.